Okay, well, thank you all again so much for your presentations. We have now heard history through a documentary, through theater, and through personal legacy. This next portion of the evening gives us an opportunity to bring those perspectives together in conversation. As our speakers return to the screen, we will move into a moderated discussion, followed by questions from the audience. We may not be able to get to every prepared question or get to every audience submission, but we will do our best to make the conversation meaningful and engaging. I'd like to begin by thanking each of you for the work you did to preserve, protect, and share these stories. Tonight, has already made clear that restoring legacy requires research, advocacy, and a creative courage. So we're going to start the evening with Gregory. Your question is, what was some of the challenges you encountered while making Invisible Warriors?
Um, I would say basically there were two challenges. One was more of a surprise, easily overcome. The other one wasn't. The first challenge, I'll say, is most of the women did not know that they had done something historically significant. So they're asking me when I found them, why do I want to talk to them? Why do I want to put them in a documentary? And so there are eight Rosies in my documentary. Only one of them at the time I met her knew that she had done something historically significant. And I actually met her at a Rosie meeting in Baltimore. Mrs. Susan King, who is an actual riveter, she turns 102 in July. I just saw her a few days ago. So, so after meeting these women, I gave them a brief history lesson to center them in World War II and to let them know that what they did was historically significant. Once I did that, it wasn't really difficult to overcome any resistance they had. But the biggest challenge I had was financial. I mean, it took me 16 years to complete. It just went into distribution in February. And so it took me 16 years to complete. And of course, while I'm working on this, life is going on too. And so there were challenges, et cetera, doing, like life doesn't stop just because you're doing a film or a documentary or a play. It just keeps going. And but I think about it, if I had had all of the money at one time, the documentary probably would have been completed about 2012, 2013 at the latest. However, I don't think it would have been historically the right moment to grab people the way it's grabbed people. And I think the murder of George Floyd had a lot to do with invisible warriors coming along at the right moment. And I think I feel that way about 688 as well. Suddenly, with George Floyd's murder, there's a heightened sense of our contributions, our presence, our challenges, and what it means to be Black in America. And so, it's unfortunate that I think, that we got the juice at just the right time. The Dutch government, for example, was the largest contributor to the documentary. And I don't think that would have, and all this was coming post George Floyd. So that was really the big challenge. It's always financial, getting our stuff produced and into the marketplace.
Thank you, Gregory, for that information. Um, Moving to you, Mary, what responsibility do you feel as a playwright in preserving the history? And did you have those same type of financial challenges and timing challenges as you moved into working on your play?
I feel a big responsibility to tell the story as close to being historically accurate as possible. With the same time, it is a work of fiction. So, the story that I'm imagining, didn't happen necessarily. These women were fictional women, but their backgrounds, some of the things that they experienced, why they chose to join, some of the things they went through is very important to me to tell those pieces as um, accurately as possible and to portray them as accurately as possible. Um, when I first told the story, I didn't even realize, what a large, network of, family members and, even some of the women that were still with us. Till actually at the first time I did the play, I actually had a woman come after the play and she brought the picture of her aunt and brought it down. And this is the first time it kind of hit me like, I mean, I knew it was real people, but just the fact that I was moving somebody and telling a story about somebody's, relative, their aunt or their mom, like Denise, and just it's really important to me to just be as accurate as possible. And in terms of the financial piece of it, I never really, I mean, everything I do is pretty much out of my own pocket. So I, don't necessarily let that stop me from a stage production. I did write the screenplay and was, actively trying to, pitch that play and work with someone. And then I heard, oh, somebody's making this movie. So that timing wise was not great. I had been trying to, sell my story for a while. Hopefully one day it'll still get made. But yeah, I just try not to let the financial aspect stop me, at least from the, stage play part. Obviously, producing a movie takes a big budget, especially something of historical nature such as that. So timing wasn't 100% great about that, but hopefully it'll have its life one day.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Moving to you, Denise, from the family perspective, especially with what Mary just said about a young lady actually bringing in a picture of her aunt who was a member of the 688. What um what did advocacy look like for you? What actions did you take to ensure that the story was not lost as you ensure that your mother's legacy continues?
What I continue to do now. I look for every opportunity. Right now, working with several libraries. Uh, the ones I'm going to first are the ones that are in neighborhoods of people of color because I think they need to know the story. I've also gone as far as Brentwood as well. And as a matter of fact, the reception there was overwhelming from people just, what is this about? And I had a harder time at one of the, well, I'll tell you, the Pruitt Library. It's not that it's not used, but they're not used to coming in and signing up for things. So what I told them was, I'll come back on a Saturday. And I realized people work. I'll come back on a Saturday when there's more time for people to come. But yes, every opportunity that includes the Y or any other place that I can go. Churches have been extremely interested, uh, mainly due to certain members saying, oh, we want to bring this program. It's not necessarily the pastor or the reverend that's doing it, but once they hear it, they enjoy it. But that's only a part of what I'm doing. You take me and you take all the other states, they're looking for every opportunity too. And I will tell you that the DEI is a problem because where I was asked to go to Kansas and different other places because they do have money for programs. I wasn't asking for money for myself, but for travel, but they've cut all that out. And then, of course, you had COVID, which was another stumbling block. But we just keep on going. Um, and as I said, because we've received the medal already, you have you have to go back in your mind and say, okay, well, that's great, but does it stop there? Because there's a lot of work up to that point. But to keep that momentum going, you have to still work with people to see so that they will see the benefit of going out and telling the story. So, and not the same story. It's generally the same story, but my mother is different than your mother. And so we try to put those nuances in it.
Well, thank you so much. And going back to you, Gregory, um, what, how should the 600,000 Black Rosies be remembered?
Um, they should be remembered as strong, patient, diligent, patriotic, determined, uh, and they were ladies. And that's the term that's kind of fallen out of favor these days, you know. But all the women I knew that I met and my mother, they were all raised to be ladies. But there were some badass women. And we cannot forget that they answered the call. They saw going to, getting a different kind of job to support the war effort. They saw that as something that was going to help their communities, help their families, and help themselves. So they should be, I think, remembered as true patriots, as true warriors for the Black community. Many of those women were the same women who backboned and spearheaded the civil rights movement. So I think I can say nothing but great things about these women. And in so many ways, I mean, in so many ways, there were also ordinary women but like all of us, like, what do we do when we're confronted with certain circumstances? Do we rise to the occasion? And do we rise to the occasion and then rise above it? And I think that these women have, and I think they did. And I think me, I'm standing on their shoulders as well as all the other boomers and subsequent generations. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that information. I often think about that 600,000 compared to the 300,000 jobs that we have lost, with a lot of it being through the federal government. And this is the Black women first entree into the federal government would have been during this time. So it's a lot to think about there. And Mary, I'd like to move over to you. And my question to you is, in your research, even though your play was inspired by 6888, was there certain things about your play that you just said, I have to get this part true to life? Was there any of those moments that you saw that you had to leave as a part of the actual original story?
Yeah, I mean, there's several things. I mean, one of the things that, sticks out to me was, part of my research, when they went over to Europe, they were, treat almost like a novelty in some cases. There was this rumor that went around that the women, so that the men, Black men had tails, or that Black people had tails in general. And a lot of the people, I won't say a lot, some of the soldiers, the white soldiers in Europe were spreading this rumor that Black people had tails, and to watch the women, because the women wore skirts, you might be able to see their tail under their skirt, such a ridiculous thing. And I just found that completely appalling that anybody would believe something like that, and that would be something that would be said about Black people. So one of the majors, when she's given a speech, she talks about this, about how she, let the women stay out later to kind of curb some of this rumor that was going around. But that's just one little story. But again, I try to throw in as many historically accurate details as possible. They were in this old school. It was always cold. So that was part of the thing, that the women, talked about, just being cold in this old school, trying to process this mail, and how difficult it was because a lot of the names were common names, little things like that. So I try to throw in as much as I can to, again, it is a fictional story, but again, to educate as well.
Thank you so much for that.
Mm.
Um, Denise, what was it like to meet the other descendants of the 6888? What was that like for you to actually meet them? And did they know their mothers and aunts' stories, or did they kind of like stumble into those, finding out that information as well?
Well, first of all, it was exciting. It was a sisterhood and a brotherhood that established very quickly. You had something in common. And when you have a mother or aunt, that is something you have in common. Uh, we gravitated also because we wanted to hear stories about each of our mothers. But what we all learned, we don't know as much as we had hoped we would know. Because remember, none of us were born. So you don't know your mother at 21. Uh, the best stories really would have come from your grandmother about your mother. And that's what we also found out. Uh, no, they didn't talk about it as much as people thought. I have letters that my mother wrote her mother, and nowhere in there does she talk about hardship. And then I thought, why would she? Why would she upset her mother and make her mother worry? It was all very nice, she didn't say having a great time, but she kept it light. And actually, I remember her asking, don't forget the money that I'm sending, use it, use it for what you all need. And I don't think she was the only one like that. I think they all had that sense of we're away, but we still are going to contribute to our household. So it's a real good feeling when we get together. I can tell you when I got to the reception, a lady turned around. She said, "Are you Denise?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "I only know you by voice, and I just wanted to come over." So I will also tell you in Arlington, when they started the ceremony, they had a reel to reel going around with all the women. And it's amazing. You're trying to find your mother, but you don't know your mother at that age. And everyone really kind of looks alike. They're all young. Says, "Is that my mother?" Well, I think that's my mother. But you would have thought we were 16 years old saying, "Oh my gosh, look at these women." There's so much pride. And each of us have said, as we look down the road, we can see the things they instilled in us. Some of it came from that. I can just give you a small example of the way I make my bed. Even in college, people would say, "Oh my gosh, you're tucking it like it's an army bed." Well, that's how I learned, but I didn't even think about it that way. So anyway, like I said, it's a sisterhood that and a brotherhood, and we all try to rely on each other. And I'm their communication person, so I'm flooding them with the stories that they are sending in to me as to what's happening in their state or their city, and they're keeping it alive. Like Jesse Jackson said, "Keep hope alive."
Thank you so much for that. As we come to a close, I do have one question for everyone, and that is what is the last thing you would like to leave us with this evening? And whoever would like to go first, please feel free to speak. What is the last bit of wisdom or
I'll
information
go.
you would like
I'll
to
go
share with
first
us
since I
this?
was the last one. I don't know whether it's wisdom, but keep telling the stories. The stories are not only interesting, but it's your history. And whether it's good history or bad history, it's something that you should know. And I'll just leave it with, I went down to Montgomery to the Legacy Museum. And it was just an overwhelming feeling of, my gosh, the history that's in here. And I don't think we should lose it. There's stories everywhere. Tell them. And last thing, tell your children. Tell them your story so that they will know and they can pass it down. It may not seem like much to you, but it might be something to them.
Very nice. Thank you so much. So I'd like to go next.
After you, Mary.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Denise stole what I was gonna say. No, just kidding. No, but no, I think it's important. I mean, yeah, I mean, we have to just we can't let these stories die. We have to continue to tell the story. And just because, you might have heard of someone from the 6888, like Denise said, her mother's story is different from another member of the 6888 story. So I think that we just have to keep not only telling the stories, but supporting the people that are trying to keep these stories alive. So whether you're, supporting, Denise and her organization and other descendants, or, Gregory's documentary, or, my play, whatever it is, um, support people that are telling these stories because, like Gregory said, it takes a long time and we've been doing this for a long time and we'll continue to do it. But we definitely need support. So whether it's just, buy a ticket, go see the documentary, go see Denise and hear her talk and, her presentation, go to the theater and hear these stories that we're trying to keep alive. The support means a lot, and hopefully that snowballs and, something sparks your interest and you go find a story that you want to tell or learn more about. So thank you all for having us here and continuing to, support Black women and the amazing accomplishments. So kudos to you all for bringing this together as well.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you. I would say two things. It's important, everybody has a cell phone these days. And so I would say start talking to people in your family about what they did. You may have someone in your family who's 50 years old, who's the first X at IBM or at Citibank. There's still a lot of stories out there that are similar to World War II, just in a different time. As I've listened to stories from other areas like the 6888, and I look at what's going on today, Black women today are facing the same challenges that they faced 80 years ago during World War II. There's some lessons in there if people are willing to learn those hard lessons. But since people today, particularly young people today, I encourage them to talk to their elders and their families and record those stories. Because baby boomers, Gen X's have their coming out stories, have their stories of what it meant to be maybe the first police officer or the first HR person. We're still doing first. And I think we need to record those stories for the family as a way of passing down family history, but also stories of relevance in terms of how they fit into the bigger story of our 400 plus year history in this country. And today we have the technology, individually, we have the technology to do that.
Well, thank you so much, Gregory, Denise, and Mary. I would like to take a moment to say thank you for the rich and moving conversation, and thank you to our audience for your questions that were sent to me. As we